Everybody. Next up, we have some of the fastest growing companies speaking about their growth stories, led by and moderated by Sunil Sharma, the legend from Techstars in Toronto. Looking forward to having all of you there next year. Without further ado, it gives me great pleasure, all the way from London, to introduce, I'm from London, to introduce Sunil, all the way from Toronto, Sunil Sharma.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So, as mentioned, my name is Sunil. I'm from Techstars in Toronto, and of course, Toronto, host of Collision next year. That's great to hear. Huge supporters of the summit, of Collision. In fact, Techstars recruits actively from this very venue and found some of our best companies from the global network of conferences run by Web Summit. So we're going to start. This is, I think, one of the best panels you'll see here at Collision. It's on the Growth Summit stage. These are three tremendously successful and fast-growing tech companies. So they're going to come out one at a time and introduce themselves. So first, and who originally came from the show floor here in Dublin in 2011, Rami Essaid from Distil Networks. Please welcome Rami.
Hey, thanks, Sunil. My name's Rami Essaid. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of Distil Networks. Distil helps companies identify the difference between bots and real people across their mobile and web apps. So without using squiggly lines or confusing pictures and street signs, we can filter out bots from real people and stop hackers from taking over accounts, stop fraudsters from improperly using credit cards, or if you want, stop Russians from meddling with your elections. It's an honor to be out here today. As Sunil said, I started 7 years ago. We were a small alpha booth, me and my co-founders, at Web Summit. And then a couple years later, we got to a beta booth, and here we are talking at Collision and Web Summit. In those 7 years, we've grown from the three of us to almost 200 people. We have raised over $80 million, tens of millions of dollars of revenue, and we're protecting tens of thousands of websites across the web. The key to our success we're here to talk about today is people and perseverance. We've had a lot of hardships along the way, a lot of things that would kill most companies, and I think a little unicorn dust and just believing in yourselves is what has helped us make it so far today. So really excited to tell our story and talk through growth. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much, Zach. Next up, someone who's had the amazing fortune of having Mark Andreessen on his board, along with John Chambers, Joe Lonsdale. From OpenGov, please welcome Zach Bookman.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Hi, everyone. How you all doing? Super glad to be here, really honored. We started OpenGov while I was living in a shipping container in Kabul, Afghanistan. I was an advisor to H.R. McMaster on the anti-corruption task force. And for the prior couple of years, this was about 6 years ago, we had been studying why all these governments across the country, and particularly California, were going bankrupt. And we learned that they were all using 40-year-old back office, on-premise legacy technology. And we said we got to do something, and we started OpenGov as a mission-driven company. We're now the cloud leader in budgeting and transparency software for governments across the country. We've got about 1,900 governments in every state, but I think Vermont, using our software and trying to create a real revolution, if you will, a once-in-a-generation inflection point from the on-premise legacy world, the analog government, to the digital government, the cloud-based enterprise software as a service government. And I'll talk to you a little bit about being completely batshit crazy to want to sell software to governments, and all the perseverance that's required to get said no to, and the learning that's required to figure out a really complicated market, a really complicated sale, and a really complicated product set. Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, thank you very much, Zach. So finally, an amazing woman who has created a company that just 2 years ago was managing 2 billion features per day for its customers, and that has now grown to 25 billion features per day managed by Edith Harbaugh's company from LaunchDarkly. Please welcome Edith Harbaugh.
Hi, I'm Edith Harbaugh. I too started off in one of those plywood booths back there. It was at Web Summit and we were a 2-person company. So it's really fun to be here now that we've grown so much. So my company, LaunchDarkly, helps startups and big enterprises all over the world launch, manage, and control their features. So one of our customers is Slido, who actually made some of the tablet software the conference is using. And then we have customers all the way up to IBM spoke at our lunch last week about how they're using us to manage their Kubernetes in the cloud. So it's pretty exciting for me that we're helping so many different customers build better software. We have airlines, banks, and car companies, a lot of people that you wouldn't think of as traditional software companies. And I think that's what's really contributed to our growth. They asked me backstage what the secret to success was and growth. I kind of answered first, hard work, but I think the real answer is happy customers. If you have happy customers using your software, they will tell other people that they're happy, and then you get more happy customers, and it compounds over time. So I think that's why we've been able to grow so fast.
Okay, thank you, Edith. That's wonderful. All right. So we're just going to take, we've got 12 minutes just to have a chat about what kind of exceptional growth what we've achieved here, and the fact that 2 companies have come from events like this, in fact, this event, and one from a shipping container in Kabul, Afghanistan, to what you have now. These are just fantastic stories. So maybe, Edith, we can start with you. You mentioned you work with some early-stage companies like Slido, which I saw their booth, but you also have some very large companies as well that you service. So just a little bit of context about how you've been growing LaunchDarkly so quickly.
Yeah, I think what we do is very universal. So we fit into the software development process where we allow our customers to be able to separate out releasing a feature and visibility. So a customer could use us to push some code out and then control who gets access to it. This is a platform like the big companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Netflix have built in-house, and we kind of give that superpower to everybody else. So it just really hit this deep primordial, I say primordial want in everybody who builds software that there's a better way to do it and a less risky way to deliver the value.
Yeah, okay. Zach, and some comments on how the growth has happened. And
So it's super hard. When we started the company, I thought this would be a kind of 3 to 5 year effort. There were 4 of us and a trick duck in a garage. And about a few years in, I realized, wow, this is going to be more like 7 to 10 years. We're now turning 6. We got about 165 people. We've raised about a little over $80 million, and are growing rapidly. And I'm realizing, wow, this is more like a generation-long kind of endeavor. And I realized venture capital is really about taking 2 generations and turning it into 1. It's not about how to take 10 years and turn it into 5, even though most people think that. So you gotta be in it to kind of slog it out and slug it out. I'd say the perseverance element is absolutely right. You're going to get said no to just 1,000 times. You got to be able to pick yourself up. The other thing I notice is the learning curve. You got to want to learn so badly, and if your rate of learning, whether you're a CEO or as a company, as a culture, if your rate of learning is really steep, you're going to win.
Yeah. And you've been growing, in a traditionally difficult industry vertical of government. So you've been growing, helping governments modernize and be efficient and have citizen engagement and manage their finances. That's not an easy customer to close, I would imagine. But you've been able to do it at alarmingly fast and successful levels. How so?
A lot of scrap, just duking it out, like clawing through it. It's extremely difficult. And as our software has expanded and prices have risen, the deal sizes are kicking out, and the planning is even harder. But I mean, my first deal was $1,800, and we're getting ready to close a deal now for $3 million next quarter if we're lucky. So
with one government agency, I would imagine, right? Yeah.
And so it's just it's extremely hard work. And that's the scrappy, perseverant element.
Yeah.
You got to have the enthusiasm, pick yourself up, like convince customers of your vision. convince employees of your vision, convince investors of your vision. And it's like that high school party you all wanted to throw. It's like, Susie's not coming until Bobby's coming, and Bobby's not coming if Jenny's not coming, and you got to make them all know that everyone's coming. So if you call up and you're like, I don't know who's coming, no one's coming. And if you call up, everyone's coming, it's going to be the best thing ever, then everyone's coming.
That's true.
I want to go to your party.
And also the growth, you've had a lot of U.S. Awareness and U.S. customers, government agencies. What about international? How are we going to expand?
Actually, we've been focused on state and local governments in the United States.
Okay.
The more you focus, the better chance you have to actually get some victories and establish a leadership position.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Rami. Fun fact about our friend Rami here, he's warms my heart. He's a Techstars alumni, went through the Techstars Cloud program in San Antonio shortly after Web Summit in Dublin, and here we are, a massively successful company. Just give us some context on that.
Yeah, Techstars was one of those things that actually compounded a year into 3 months for us, and really helped us drive and accelerate growth, accelerate learning at a very early stage when we didn't really know what we were doing at all as founders. We had built a basic product that a couple of customers were using, but really didn't know what to do and what to scale that out. And Techstars took that and compounded that. And that's what we've done in terms of leveraging venture as well. To Zach's point, you bring that in and you try to accelerate what traditional growth would look like and really compress that down into a much faster time frame. Also, I echo the hustle and the hard work. It wasn't just Web Summit that we went to. I literally went to any conference that was either cheap or free, and any pitch competition early on that would let me pitch, just because it was free marketing, it was free advertising, it was free exposure. And then you start building on that success. You allow that to compound. And just like Zach said, when our first customers were $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year, and now we're closing $250,000, $500,000 plus deals annually. But it works like a rushing nesting doll, where a small customer allows you to get one bigger customer, and that customer allows you to continue to grow, and you do that across the entire organization in terms of success, and you continue to leverage one successful thing to get an even higher rung on the ladder.
So momentum, similar to how Zach was describing it. And now you're a 200-person company from the 3 that were here on the show floor, and probably maybe 1 or 2 more at Techstars. And you're growing, I think, even with some acquisition now. You're growing in other markets by acquiring companies.
Yeah, so we acquired 2 companies along the way. We found, sometimes organic growth and getting product to market fast enough, even as innovative startup guys as we are, we couldn't do it fast enough. So went out and acqui-hired or spent a couple $1 million here and there on some acquisitions just to again, speed is the name of the game. I think, especially in security where we're in, you have to always be able to stay ahead. And so sometimes if you can't do it fast enough organically, then inorganic growth is almost as good.
Yeah. And Zach, you had said something so interesting backstage to me, that as much as you're a tech company, you really feel that you're a people company, and it's about the people that you've assembled within the company, and obviously your board is insanely interesting. Comment a little bit about how you feel you are a people company first.
Yeah, I think Rami was talking about this too backstage. It's all about the people. Can you connect with people? Can you recruit people? Can you manage people? Can you make people feel good? Can you make customers feel good? It's at least as much about the people as it is about the tech in most businesses, certainly in, I'd say, enterprise software applications, where you have to have a go-to-market model that involves people. You probably have a little bit different go-to-market model, Edith, or maybe you're building a big direct sales force?
We have salespeople, but they're very consultative. We closed a really big deal with a bank, and before I could send them a thank you note, they sent me a thank you note. Yeah. They said, thank you so much, your salesperson, Tyler, was awesome. We're so happy to be working with you. And I was like, this is not the way enterprise sales usually goes.
Well, so all the more so, I think, a lot of us are going to be jealous of those businesses where they don't have to have go-to-market machines or sales forces, or they don't even need people at all. They just need 5 engineers in a room. That's not been my experience at all. It's all, even if you just had 5 engineers, can you take care of them? Are they the kings of the kingdom? Do the employees lead and the leaders serve? And so I think it's really key to figure out the people part of it and listen and build your empathy and and all the soft skills.
Yeah.
It's something I'm working on.
Edith, your company has been ranked as one of the fastest growing SaaS companies in the country. I think some of that growth for a relatively, I mean, you're a 45-person company. You've raised significant money, I think around $30 million of funding raised. How are you working with startup companies? You mentioned Slido, and I think there's some other startup companies that you're offering services and a package to, and are they migrating into becoming really large accounts for you soon after?
Yeah, it's really been fun. So I've gotten to see some of our startups really break out. Like, so Fubo.tv was a very early customer of ours,
Yep.
and now they're one of the top apps for watching sports.
Right.
So it's amazing to see the success of people who are using us and have us grow with them.
Okay. So we have just a few minutes left on the sort of on the theme of people. Hiring and retention of real, a top quality talent that you probably you'll never hesitate to attribute a lot of your success to those people responsible for growth within the companies. So you're all US-based companies in hyper-competitive markets where there's potentially a lot of turnover and churn. How are you handling hiring talent and retaining your very best talent that relates to growth of your company?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when we hired our first engineer, we had no money. I mean, I could only afford to pay him for a month, so he actually went out and interviewed while I tried to fundraise.
Yeah.
And he got offers from, the top tier firms, the Googles, and he chose us because he said he was having more fun. Like work is not just a paycheck that he felt like, just coming to work every day and getting fun stuff done is fun.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to hiring executives, it's a really key piece of the puzzle, and it's brutal. A bit like that high school party analogy. As a startup, you typically can't hire anyone you want to, unless you're as good as Edith. And I mean that seriously, but it's really hard to hire people you want, whether it's to pay them or whether the great people are like, hey, I'll only talk to you when you have another zero on the end of your revenue number. And so it's a continual process of trying to build yourself and get the right people in and help them grow or upgrade your talent. And that's a really, really hard thing to do, and there's 100 mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, for us, we have 4 offices around the globe, 2 in the EU, 1 on the East Coast, 1 on the West Coast. So we are able to augment a little bit of the challenges that we have in our headquarters, San Francisco, of hiring with an East Coast office and a European office, which is a little bit easier to hire talent. If you bring the culture of startup culture to a stodgy place like DC, you kind of stand out. But that said, you still have to take care of people. And I go back to Edith's point. It's about having fun. It's about people, empowering people to understand what impact they have on what you're doing. Even as a couple 100-person company, every single person matters. There's not fat within the organization. And people need to understand that what they do matters day to day, because then they see the impact and they understand what they're working for.
Okay. Rami, Zach, Edith, we worked this clock perfectly. A big round of applause for our 3 panelists and for this growth panel. It was just fantastic. Okay, thank you very much.